because he didn't know it, but he came and we told him at the very last minute, Prince is not coming, you're taking Prince's part.
Lionel Richie's name evokes smooth ballads, sold-out arenas, and effortless charm. But behind the golden smile was a story few truly knew. At 75, the legendary hitmaker isn't just looking back. He's finally answering the questions that shadowed his career for decades. What really kept him going through the betrayals, the lawsuits, and the heartbreak? And could the quiet whispers about a surprising twist in his love life actually be true? As Richie lifts the veil on the secrets he once guarded fiercely, one thing becomes clear. Not everything that glittered was gold, and not every rumor was wrong. Get ready. The truth is far more riveting than anyone expected. From Tuskegee to global stardom. Lionel Richie's story begins in the small but historically rich town of Tuskegee, Alabama. He grew up surrounded by a vibrant African-American community that placed a deep emphasis on education, culture, and perseverance. With Tuskegee University practically in his backyard, Richie was exposed early on to Black pioneers and world changers. It's no surprise that from a young age, he showed not just musical talent, but an innate ambition to make a mark on the world. Though he initially pursued a degree in economics, fate had other plans, and music quickly became the center of his universe. In the late 1960s, Lionel Richie joined a campus band called the Mystics, which would later evolve into the Commodores. This move would prove life-changing. The Commodores gained traction for their electrifying performances and signature blend of funk, soul, and pop. Their breakout success came when they signed with Motown Records, the powerhouse label behind some of the biggest Black artists of the era. Richie's smooth vocals and songwriting genius helped the Commodores score major hits like Easy, 3 Times a Lady, and Brick House, carving out a permanent space for the group in 1970s music history. While the Commodores were gradually reaching their peak, whispers started to swirl around that Richie had greater ambitions for himself than he was concerned about the group. The early 1980s saw him taking the bold step of going solo. His pursuing a career was questioned by many in the circles then. Could he achieve success by himself? This question was, of course, answered quickly. His self-titled debut solo album, released in 1982, spawned hit singles such as Truly and earned him his first Grammy as a solo artist. This gamble proved that Lionel Richie was more than just a member of a great band. He was a star in his own right, destined to flourish on his own terms. With Lionel Richie graduating into superstardom, his international appeal grew rapidly. Few in the industry straddled genres from soul to pop to country, which was a key personality trait for Richie on his way to fame. Songs like All Night Long and Say You, Say Me did not just become bestsellers, but actually became cultural moments. By the mid-80s, he was seen performing in events such as the closing ceremony of the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics, further sealing his position as a global icon. Yet, right at the time when he was ushering in a new era of unparalleled success, questions arose still. Were perhaps Lionel Richie's lightning strike successes too good to last? Or had already impending troubles been brewing away from the limelight? As Lionel stepped into the spotlight alone, no one could have predicted just how deeply his next songs would embed themselves into music history. A career that defined generations. When Lionel Richie stepped into his solo career, few could have predicted the magnitude of his success. His ability to craft heartfelt, timeless songs quickly set him apart. One of his earliest solo hits, Hello, became an instant classic, with its haunting lyrics and unforgettable music video embedding itself into pop culture history. Richie's gift for writing emotionally resonant ballads touched millions around the world, elevating him beyond a mere pop star to a storyteller of human connection. Songs like Truly and You Are confirmed that his magic was not limited to the Commodores. He had found his voice, and the world was listening. Among Richie's most remarkable achievements was his seamless ability to cross musical genres. In 1984, he released Stuck on You, a country-influenced ballad that surprised fans and critics alike. Wearing a cowboy hat on the single's cover, Richie proved he wasn't confined to soul and pop. The song climbed both the pop and country charts, expanding his already massive audience. Then came Say You, Say Me, written for the film White Nights, which not only topped charts globally, but also won Richie an Academy Award for Best Original Song. With every release, he continued breaking barriers, proving that music had no boundaries for him. With all accolades coming in, it seemed that Lionel Richie ruled the 80s for all time. He had 4 Grammy Awards to himself, including Album of the Year for Can't Slow Down, and his records sold in excess of millions every time. His concerts drew big crowds of all ages and backgrounds, united by his song's universal sentiments. One defining event was when All Night Long was sung by Lionel Richie at the closing ceremony of the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics, watched by more than 2 billion people on television. It proved how worldwide the music had come. Lionel Richie wasn't just an American star, he was now a global phenomenon. Even decades later, Lionel Richie's music has stood the test of time, still played at weddings, celebrations, and sneaky radio stations around the world. But just as much as his catalog gets celebrated, some have asked, did the oversweetness of his ballads sometimes inadvertently paint him into that artistic corner? Critics have also sometimes questioned whether Richie was innovating in his later works, as boldly as during his earlier hits. But whatever may have been the case, while the musical trends changed, one thing is for sure. Few artists ever expressed the heartaches, joys, and longings of love with such verve as did Lionel Richie. These were songs that not just defined a generation, but continue to transcend it. Behind Closed Doors. While Lionel Richie's professional life was soaring to unimaginable heights, his personal life was crumbling behind closed doors. In 1975, Richie married his college sweetheart, Brenda Harvey, after meeting her while studying at Tuskegee University. For years, the pair seemed inseparable, especially as Lionel's fame grew with the Commodores and later as a solo star. To outsiders, their marriage appeared solid, strengthened even further when they adopted Nicole Richie, the daughter of a struggling bandmate. Yet beneath the picture-perfect image, tensions simmered. Pressures of fame, relentless touring, and personal changes were beginning to take a toll. The cracks in their marriage widened when Richie embarked on an affair with dancer Diane Alexander. The relationship, which reportedly began during the mid-1980s, remained a secret for some time, until it exploded into public view in one of the most infamous scandals of Richie's life. In a shocking moment, Brenda Harvey discovered Richie and Alexander together at her Beverly Hills apartment. Reports from the time claim that Brenda confronted the pair in a heated altercation that ended with police intervention. The confrontation led to Brenda's arrest on charges including corporal injury to a spouse, resisting arrest, and trespassing, a humiliating spectacle for one of music's most beloved figures. The beginning of separation then imposed a ban on its publicity. A few months later, the couple was officially divorced in 1993 after nearly 18 years of marriage. Speculation ran wild about the emotional and financial burden the scandal had inflicted on Richie, during which time the public image he was creating for himself was one of love songs and romantic ballads. Perhaps, some wondered, the emotions he felt while recording music during that time were a reflection of some sort of inner turmoil. Richie was seldom tight-lipped about the affair, causing severe personal and professional consequences he would never completely escape. If Lionel Richie's first marriage served to afford the uninitiated fan a rare glimpse into the life of the human being behind the facade of the polished pop star, it also serves as a reminder of a different story altogether, one covered up by the glamour of fame and success. Hearts can be broken, and indeed, even icons like Richie endure the occasional heartbreak and blinding mistake. Promoting his work in the ensuing years, Lionel would speak in general terms about love, loss, and things learned, though he never really delved much into that painful chapter. The scars of that turbulent time remain part of the sobering tapestry of his story, because the reality is that many of his greatest ballads were born out of those wounds. Lionel's marriage to Diane Alexander. After the dust settled from Lionel Richie's highly publicized divorce from Brenda Harvey, he found himself turning toward the very woman at the center of the scandal, Diane Alexander. Their romance, which had started under complicated and controversial circumstances, eventually blossomed into something more official. In 1995, Lionel and Diane married in a private ceremony, formalizing a relationship that many had initially criticized. Fans wondered if this union could truly thrive given its turbulent beginnings, but for a time, it seemed Richie had found love again, and the couple appeared to enjoy a lavish and glamorous lifestyle together. Their marriage was marked by extravagant living, from luxurious homes to lavish vacations, painting the picture of a life few could imagine. Together, Lionel and Diane welcomed 2 children, Miles Brockman Richie and Sophia Richie, further cementing their bond. Yet, behind the scenes, cracks in the relationship were reportedly growing. Rumors of mounting tensions and lifestyle disagreements surfaced, though neither Richie nor Alexander spoke publicly about the specifics. By 2004, after nearly a decade together, the marriage ended in divorce, leaving Richie once again to pick up the pieces of his personal life under the intense glare of public scrutiny. It was reported that during the divorce, one of the largest claims made in the case was a financial burden of staggering proportions placed on the other side by Alexander. Court documents and media reports suggest that Diane asked for $300,000 a month in spousal and child support, which raised eyebrows even among Hollywood's elite. Her contention is that the standard of living maintained throughout their marriage was justified since she and her children required that level of comfort. While reports on the actual settlement remain largely sealed, this incident underscored some extraordinary costs that come with fame, fortune, and unfulfilled love. The second marriage of Lionel Richie was a reflection of both the benefits and the pitfalls of living life in the public eye. Did the extraordinary pressures of the public's gaze on the life and relationship become detrimental to the health of the relationship? Were many of the cracks in the foundation already etched, or had the relationship been doomed to fight since its inception? These are some of the questions that fans and onlookers have mused about. What is evidently clear is that the end of Richie's second marriage was yet another deeply personal loss for the superstar. A painful reminder that even in the limelight and the brightest moments of fame, Lionel's journey through love had its fair share of double-edged adventure. How Lisa Parigi brought stability. After years of romantic turbulence and very public heartbreak, Lionel Richie found an unexpected source of peace and happiness in Lisa Parigi. The two first crossed paths at a dinner party in Los Angeles, introduced by mutual friends. Despite the stark 40-year age difference, the connection between them was immediate and natural, a meeting of souls rather than generations. At the time, Lisa was living in Switzerland, but their bond was strong enough to transcend distance, culture, and expectations. Fans who had grown accustomed to seeing Lionel with high-profile, often complicated partners were intrigued. Could this be the calm after decades of stormy relationships? Lisa Parigi quickly became much more than just Lionel Richie's girlfriend. She brought with her an air of calm sophistication and an impressive resume. Born and raised in Switzerland, Lisa is of Swiss, Caribbean, and Chinese descent and is fluent in 4 languages. She also built her own empire as an entrepreneur, founding the Estate Collection, a luxury lifestyle brand, and Glow Up Beauty, a vegan skincare line. Unlike the flashy personalities Richie had previously been linked to, Lisa seemed grounded and business-savvy, traits that reportedly complemented Lionel's more chaotic world perfectly. Was it possible that Richie had finally found someone who matched not just his heart, but his rhythm? Through the years, Lisa and Lionel's love has seemingly matured, with Lisa quietly integrating herself into every facet of his life and even into his family. Especially close is she with Richie's kids, particularly Sophia Richie, with whom she shares an unusually strong bond, often posting emotional tributes to their milestones. From attending major events like Kennedy Center Honors or Grammys to family bridal showers, Lisa has been a constant, calming fixture beside Richie. The critics say that this relationship, despite the age gap and celebrity backdrop, is almost absurdly low drama and deeply supportive, contrasting so vividly with the upheaval of Lionel's past romances. Could it be that Lionel Richie, after a marathon of loving accommodation and disillusionment, has finally found a love that may endure for a bit longer? Marriage rumors may have come and gone with some frequency, despite the strong public displays of affection from the couple and Lisa's relevant integration into Lionel's family. There has never been any sort of official engagement announcement, but the peace and togetherness that they both feel seem to have surpassed any sort of need for a title. Lionel Richie, with Lisa Parigi, might be one sweet love story for a man who has long sung about the trials and triumphs of love. Beyond love and new beginnings, Lionel's greatest devotion has always been to something even closer to his heart: the evolution of Lionel's bond with family. For Lionel Richie, fame, fortune, and accolades have always taken a back seat to something far more personal: family. His journey into fatherhood began unconventionally when he and his first wife, Brenda Harvey, adopted Nicole Richie, the daughter of struggling musician friends. At just 2 years old, Nicole entered Lionel's world and quickly became the center of it. Richie has often reflected on how the experience grounded him during the chaos of his skyrocketing career. He promised Nicole early on that he would provide the stability she had lacked, famously telling her, "I'm not going anywhere." For Richie, that commitment to fatherhood became one of the defining elements of his life. As Nicole grew into adulthood, her journey wasn't without turbulence. Her early fame from The Simple Life and struggles with substance abuse were widely publicized, a painful experience for any parent to watch unfold. Lionel often said that raising Nicole was a roller coaster that tested him more than any stage performance ever could. Yet through all the highs and lows, he never wavered in his support. Today, Nicole has built a successful career as a designer, author, and mother, and Lionel beams with pride at the woman she has become. He even joked that surviving Nicole's wild years should have earned him a medal, a testament to the bond that carried them both through difficult times. Lionel's relationship with Miles Brockman Richie took a different turn. With Miles, it was the nurturing of not-so-public childhood time, and today he is a budding creative, besides being a model. Lionel is clear about how fathering a son creates various challenges, requiring a balance between being a disciplinarian and an understanding mentor. When headlines spilled into an incident involving Miles at Heathrow Airport in 2019, Richie met the incident with measured understanding and support, for it's accentuated to him still guiding but allowing independence for the son. With time, it has become evident that Richie values allowing his children the freedom to forge their own paths while always being there as a steadying presence. Sophia Richie, Lionel's youngest child, has a bond with him that seems especially sweet. Sophia grew up with the pressures of fame, but carved her own niche as a highly successful model and entrepreneur. Lionel was very apprehensive about Sophia's very public romance with Scott Disick, stating that, as a father, it is difficult not to be concerned publicly. He did practice a lot of patience, and Sophia was given the autonomy to choose, while he quietly supported her from the sidelines. In 2023, when she wed Elliot Grange in an opulent ceremony, Lionel magnificently walked her down the aisle, a clear sign of their deep connection. Through every chapter of their lives, Lionel's commitment to being a present and loving father has remained one of his proudest achievements, and perhaps his truest legacy. Battles with health issues and personal loss. At the height of his fame in the 1980s, Lionel Richie seemed untouchable, but behind the scenes, he was fighting silent battles that nearly ended his career. As he pushed through intense tours, endless interviews, and mounting pressure to maintain his superstar status, Richie developed a mysterious throat condition that threatened the very gift that made him famous: his voice. He underwent 4 separate surgeries, each one filled with the terrifying risk that he might never sing again. Richie later admitted that the fear was overwhelming, describing the experience as standing at the edge of a cliff, not knowing whether he would fall or fly. Compounding his physical health struggles was a growing emotional toll that few outside his inner circle knew about. As he battled through the uncertainty surrounding his voice, Richie was simultaneously dealing with deeply personal loss. In 1990, his father, Lionel Brockman Richie Sr., passed away after a long illness. Richie had always been close to his father, crediting him as a steady and guiding influence throughout his life. Losing him was a devastating blow, one that sent Lionel into a spiral of grief and depression. In interviews years later, he would reflect that this period brought him closer to a complete breakdown than any other time in his life. To make matters worse, emotionally and physically, it was the first divorce from a highly publicized and messy marriage. Richie lost, over a couple of years, his marriage, his father, and nearly his voice. All this while being expected to deliver hits and smiles to the rest of the world. It is easy to imagine the crushing weight he carried at this time. Richie has come out and said that he leaned quite a lot on his faith, friends, and family to pull him through those dark years. Curiously, he has also associated an incident with a stranger in Jamaica, which reminded him that he is a beacon of hope for many, as the point that pulled him back from the brink. Today, even after having gone through a lot of changes himself, Lionel Richie can freely talk about how close he came to losing everything he had built. Recovery wasn't fast or easy, it was intentional nevertheless. Those immensely arduous battles against illness, grief, and despair not only remade his career, but also completely transformed his view of life. They may have robbed him of some of the sights that people love, but they left in place that which was even stronger resilience. Maybe that's why, even many years later, Richard remains not only a cherished entertainer, but also a picture of endurance for fans around the world who have fought through their own dark seasons. Lawsuits and legal woes. Even at the peak of his career, Lionel Richie wasn't immune to controversy, and one of the most surprising chapters came in the mid-1980s when he was accused of plagiarism. In 1985, songwriters Gene Thompson and Tracy Singleton filed a $3 million lawsuit against Richie, alleging that several of his songs, including the beloved "Stuck on You," were copied from their earlier compositions Somebody's Got to Love Her, and You and Me. At the time, Richie's star had never been brighter, and the idea that such a revered artist could have stolen material was shocking to many fans. Was it possible that behind his golden hits lurked hidden legal risks? Initially, the case appeared weak. After a detailed examination, music experts on both sides testified that there was no substantial similarity between Richie's songs and those of the plaintiffs. A federal judge agreed, dismissing the case in 1987 and even ordering Thompson and Singleton to pay Richie's legal fees, a rare rebuke that signaled how seriously the court viewed the matter. But the drama didn't end there. In a twist, Thompson and Singleton appealed the decision, and a higher court ruled that a jury, not a judge, should decide whether Richie had access to their original songs. Suddenly, what seemed like a minor nuisance dragged into a multi-year legal battle. Years later, the case finally reached trial, and once again, it turned in Richie's favor. The jury held that there was no strong evidence to suggest that Richie ever even heard the songs of the plaintiffs, much less copied them. Reports from the court showed that the jurors reached their decision in just a matter of a few hours, which made for a swift adjudication event at the end of a saga that had formed a specter over Richie for close to 6 years. Richie is reported to have said on the ordeal, "I can go home and go out to sleep now," which was indicative of how much the accusations weighed on him at a very pivotal moment in his career. As most major artists, Lionel Richie was left to answer larger questions that had to do with the vulnerability of stars to copyright issues. Or was this just the price of fame, with a superstar becoming an easy target for opportunistic lawsuits? Or perhaps it was a timely reminder that even the most original creators could not escape from egregious blame on copyright issues that most times may run out of their own control. While fans overwhelmingly stood behind Richie, the episode added a rather crumpled footnote to the otherwise glamorous legacy of the artist. However, his music must outlive all. It must stand unshaken and cherished by millions across the world. When weather and fate intervened, even for a consummate professional like Lionel Richie, not everything could be controlled, especially when it came to forces of nature. One of the wildest stories from Richie's career involves a chaotic night at Madison Square Garden, where bad weather and logistical nightmares nearly forced him to cancel a sold-out show. Flights were grounded, the clock was ticking, and Richie was stranded in another city with no obvious way to make it in time. For a star who prided himself on never disappointing his fans, the idea of a no-show was unacceptable. What happened next has become the stuff of music industry legend. Desperate to reach New York before thousands of disappointed fans flooded out of the garden, Richie allegedly made a bold and borderline reckless move. According to stories whispered among those close to the situation, Richie offered a hefty bonus to a private pilot, reportedly encouraging him to fly under less than ideal weather conditions. It wasn't exactly a bribe in the criminal sense, but the request certainly pushed the boundaries of what would be considered safe or legal in aviation. Some insiders claim Richie framed it as a heartfelt plea rather than a shady payoff. "We have to make it," he supposedly told the pilot. Whether spurred on by the prospect of money, the feeling of loyalty, or just a little bit of showbiz adrenaline, the pilot accepted. He expertly navigated stormy skies and hazardous terrain and somehow managed to land Richie just in time so that he could be rushed to the arena. The concert went on, almost incredibly. Few knew how many greater highs and lows it had been through in getting to that point. Richie went on stage, gave a killer performance, and never spoke publicly about the close call in much detail. But among his team, the story has lived on as a crazy testament to what he was willing to do for his audience. This incident raises fascinating retrospection. Was it carelessness by Richie to risk life for a show, just a show? Or was it proving to be the ultimate demonstration of sanctity and integrity towards his art, as well as his fans? As also per what reputation would follow, a cancellation could cause permanent damage in this business. Lionel Richie proved he was ready to perform at any cost, reiterating the image of an artist truly devoted to his people. Above all, however, it says a lot more of Richie. Beneath the polished smile and smooth ballads lies the heart of a man ready to take enormous risks, not from the ego, but out of loyalty to those who believed in him. After all the chaos and close calls, Richie's biggest revelations were still waiting, and they were far more personal than any concert could ever reveal. A confession about love and life. At 75, Lionel Richie has finally pulled back the curtain on some of the most personal questions that have lingered around him for years. In recent interviews and quiet public appearances, he has spoken more candidly than ever before about the lessons learned from decades of love, heartbreak, and perseverance. Far from the untouchable superstar image he once embodied, Richie now presents himself as a man humbled by time. Someone who has endured massive success, painful betrayals, devastating losses, and ultimately found peace. "If you're lucky," he recently said, "you realize it's not about the grand gestures. It's about showing up every single day." Among the topics he addressed most tenderly was his relationship with Lisa Parigi, the woman who has stood by his side for over a decade despite their 40-year age gap. Dismissing rumors that they were simply a phase or a fling, Lionel instead described Lisa as his true partner, his calm after the storms. Though they have remained relatively private, Richie now confirms what fans long suspected. Lisa brought a level of stability and unconditional love he hadn't experienced before. When asked about marriage, Lionel played coy, but left the door open, saying, "Titles don't define us, love does." Was that a hint that a quiet wedding could still be in their future? Richie went on to reveal his regrets, his career's consequences on family life, and on his own health. He said that the pressure of keeping the public image often rendered him incapable of having or sharing life's precious moments. Reflecting back over those years, he now said, "I thought success would take care of everything. But what really fixes everything is love, true love, not applause." These lines hit differently with his age-old fans, who revered his polished image yet are seeing a much open, more vulnerable man in his autumn years. He seems to have finally found the kind of peace that he would sing about for decades, as the twilight settles firmly over Lionel Richie's greatly respected life and career. No more concerns over hits and headlines. Now, it is family, true love, and simple everyday pleasures that go a long way for him. And as he continues to share that softer, wiser side with the world, it leaves fans wondering, after all the ballads and broken hearts, could it be that Lionel Richie's greatest masterpiece, after all, actually has all of the appearances of the quiet life he lived? One not solely filled with music, but meaningful in every aspect. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like, drop a comment below, and subscribe for more incredible stories. And if you're ready for the next chapter, click the video on your screen right now. You won't want to miss it.